He saw her. The cameras saw him. But his eyes passed over Meghan Markle like she didn't exist. It was the moment that stopped the Hollywood Christmas parade in its tracks. Not for the confetti, not for the cheer, not even for the sleigh carrying the Grand Marshal of the year. No, it was the bone-chilling, blink-and-you'll-miss-it non-encounter between actor Luke Wilson and Meghan Markle that set social media on fire. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But let's rewind, because if you blinked, you missed everything. Or did you? Imagine this, a sea of red and green, lights sparkling down Hollywood Boulevard, children waving candy canes, float after float rolling through the street. It's December 1st, 2025, and the Hollywood Christmas Parade, an annual tradition stretching back to 1928, is in full swing. But something's different this year. Or rather, someone is. Luke Wilson, beloved actor, known for his down-to-earth charm and quiet dignity, is this year's Grand Marshal. It's a feel-good selection. He's got that timeless quality, part Owen Wilson's cool brother, part hometown boy next door. He's been in a dozen fan-favorite films, stayed scandal-free, and remains a comforting Hollywood constant. And then there's Meghan Markle. The Duchess-turned-actress-turned-influencer-turned-Mayborough again, who has spent the past several years navigating a minefield of public opinion, corporate deals, and personal rebranding. Her show, With Love, Meghan launched earlier this year on Netflix to mixed reviews. Her lifestyle brand, as ever, is struggling with returns and supply chain drama. And her relationship with the British royal family? Still as tense as ever. Yet there she was, not on the guest list, not in the VIP tent, not even seated in the celebrity bleachers. Meghan was standing along the edge of the parade route, dressed impeccably in a neutral-toned trench coat, a soft scarf wrapped carefully around her hair, oversized sunglasses just below her brows. Alone, watching. The crowd didn't seem to notice at first. A few paparazzi did. One brave photographer angled for a shot, but hesitated. Was she even supposed to be there? And then, the moment happened. Luke Wilson's float crept closer. Cheers erupted from the grandstand. A brass band played Jingle Bell Rock. Kids screamed his name. He waved, his warm Texan smile lighting up the night. But then he looked in Meghan's direction. And nothing. Not a pause. Not a glance. Not a twitch of recognition. For someone trained in the art of celebrity, who could spot a fellow public figure in a crowd of thousands, who knew that every parade moment was being live-streamed, Wilson's non-reaction spoke volumes. It wasn't passive. It was intentional. And Meghan? She flinched, ever so slightly. Her mouth tightened. She adjusted her sunglasses. Her phone, clutched in her manicured hand, trembled just for a second. And in that moment, the mask cracked. What happened here? Was this a moment of deliberate exclusion from Hollywood royalty? Did Luke Wilson, an actor never known for drama, just issue a quiet condemnation of Meghan Markle on one of the biggest stages of the season? Or was this all a tragic misunderstanding, blown out of proportion by a public desperate for scandal? That's the question that's got Hollywood insiders whispering, tabloids scrambling for quotes, and fans on both sides ready for battle. Because here's the twist. Meghan wasn't supposed to be there. According to several event organizers, who spoke off-record, Meghan Markle was not invited to participate, attend, or even observe the parade in any official capacity. There were no passes issued in her name, no credentialed publicists, no press releases, and no coordination with security. So what was she doing there? Some insiders claim she was trying to stage a surprise appearance, an organic, unscripted moment that could reignite her Hollywood sparkle. Others say she just wanted to support the event, like any local celebrity who loves Christmas. But the truth, as always with Meghan Markle, lies somewhere between reality and performance. Because this wasn't just any parade, and Luke Wilson wasn't just any Grand Marshal. And if you think this was just a social misunderstanding, you haven't been paying attention. Let's back up. Hollywood has changed. Once, Meghan Markle could count on support from A-list circles, progressive media, and major studios, all hoping to align themselves with her fairy tale narrative. American girl marries prince, escapes the palace, fights the institution, launches a new life of freedom, feminism, and philanthropy. But in 2025, the narrative has shifted. People are no longer asking, how is Meghan doing? But rather, What does Meghan want now? And that question, fair or not, has become radioactive in some circles. Sources close to major talent agencies whisper about Markle fatigue. Publicists admit off the record that attaching a brand to her can be risky. Executives refer to her behind closed doors as high reward, high risk, the kind of celebrity who brings buzz, but not always the kind you want. Enter Luke Wilson, the unproblematic Hollywood staple, a man who has made his career by staying out of the headlines, whose low-key nature and everyman appeal have made him one of the most trusted faces in entertainment. This year, several studios, including Warner Brothers and Amazon MGM, have quietly courted him for larger hosting gigs, brand endorsements, and even production roles. And according to one leaked industry email, Luke was specifically praised for being the opposite of controversy. So when he accepted the honor of being Grand Marshal, insiders say it wasn't just a parade, it was a signal. A message from the entertainment industry that the age of performative virtue signaling was giving way to something else: authenticity, reliability, humility. All qualities Meghan Markle has been accused of abandoning. Now let's talk about timing. The Hollywood Christmas parade has long been more than just a seasonal celebration. It's a strategic platform. It sits at the intersection of showbiz nostalgia and current cultural relevance. And being front and center at the parade can solidify your place as a beloved figure in the public eye. So why wouldn't Meghan want to be there? Theories abound. Some say she believed her presence would be embraced, a surprise that would create a viral moment. Others suggest she was testing the waters after months of diminished press appearances. A third group claims she was seeking a way to shift the narrative after whispers of her lifestyle brand underperforming began to circulate in investor circles. But no matter what her reasons were, the outcome was the same. She stood there. Luke Wilson passed by, and he looked through her. No smile, no gesture, no acknowledgement. And for a woman who has built her second act on visibility, on the power of being seen, this non-interaction hit harder than a headline. But it didn't end there. Because what the public didn't see, what happened in the hours before and after the parade, is where the real story begins. Insiders say Luke Wilson was warned in advance. Not about a security threat, about a PR one. Sources reveal that his team had received an anonymous tip 2 days before the event. Meghan Markle might try to appear at the parade, uninvited, to regain control of the media cycle. How did they respond? Some say they laughed it off. Others claim they quietly adjusted their protocol, briefing security and instructing Wilson to stay the course. Regardless of what was said, one thing was clear: Luke knew she might be there. And he chose silence. Not just silence. Public, documented, camera-captured indifference. A message louder than any speech. A mask dropped. Not just Meghan's, but Hollywood's too. And that's where our journey begins. Because this wasn't about one ignored woman at a Christmas parade. This was about shifting tides in Hollywood power dynamics, back-channel conversations, subtle rejections, and the quiet war being waged behind the red carpets. A war that has finally, publicly, named Meghan Markle as persona non grata. But the real twist? This story started long before the parade, and it's far from over. Because just 3 weeks earlier, at a private dinner in Los Angeles, Meghan's name was already being erased from guest lists, and Luke Wilson's star was on the rise. And what happened next changed everything. Can a single look, or the absence of one, change a legacy? There are moments in Hollywood that are whispered about for decades. The "I will have what she's having" moment in When Harry Met Sally. The Oscar slap heard round the world. And now, the glance that never came. Because in a city built on recognition, being deliberately unseen is not just a snub. It's a statement. Luke Wilson made no speech. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than any headline. Let's zoom in. It's 7:42 p.m., the parade is in full swing, and Luke Wilson's convertible, the centerpiece of the night, rolls slowly past the Grauman's Chinese Theater. The cheers are deafening. Camera flashes light up the boulevard like lightning. Just ahead, Meghan Markle shifts slightly on the edge of the sidewalk. Not in a crowd. Not behind the ropes. She's alone, but in plain sight, strategically placed for full visibility. A perfect angle. A perfect frame. She adjusts her scarf. Her lips part, not into a smile, but something waiting, a poised expression, rehearsed for years. Anticipation meets calculation. Luke Wilson turns toward her side of the street. And then, he looks right through her. Like glass, he raises his hand. To the family behind her, waving back. He nods. He smiles. He keeps moving. And in that frozen frame, everything shifts. Meghan doesn't flinch immediately. She holds her ground. She even offers the faintest smile. But it's hollow. There's no flicker of recognition in Luke's face. And she knows it. The camera crew beside her lowers their equipment, unsure if they've caught anything usable. Even the ambient noise of the crowd seems to hush for a second, like Hollywood itself has paused to exhale. Why does it matter? Let's be brutally honest. This isn't high school. It's not about popularity. It's about optics, power, control. And in Hollywood, perception is currency. You don't need to release a press statement to bury someone. Sometimes, you just keep walking. Luke Wilson, the man once known as the quieter Wilson brother, just sent a message, "Don't look here." And everyone noticed. Back in the broadcast booth, commentators awkwardly skipped over Meghan's presence. Social media, however, didn't. Within minutes, clips began circulating. Did Luke Wilson just snub Meghan Markle? Trended on X, formerly Twitter. TikTokers started dissecting her micro-expressions. Reddit threads exploded with theories. Some saw it as a brutal power move. Others claimed it was karmic justice. But for Meghan, it wasn't just one moment. It was the culmination of weeks, months, of slow, strategic exclusion. You think that moment was accidental? It wasn't. Let's break it down. Days before the parade, Meghan's name had come up in private conversations. Not about being honored. Not about being invited. About being removed. Producers of the broadcast segment allegedly received a quiet advisory from a studio contact. If she's there, don't focus. No pan, no zoom. Unofficial, undocumented. But very real. This wasn't malice. This was corporate calculus. Meghan's Q score, an industry metric that measures how well-known and well-liked a celebrity is, has plummeted in 2025. After two underperforming projects, a string of PR missteps, and increasingly cold receptions from former allies, executives have begun to see her differently. Not as a brand builder, as a risk. And Luke? He's never been flashy. He never needed a royal title, a memoir, or a multi-million-dollar Spotify deal. He's built his career the old-fashioned way. Bit by bit, film by film, never too loud, never too controversial. He's safe. And in 2025, Hollywood wants safe. That's why he was picked. That's why Meghan wasn't. And yet, there she stood, perfectly composed, perfectly placed, as if willing the cameras to find her, as if expecting someone to wave. But no one did. Let's get deeper. Because to understand the stakes of this moment, you have to understand Meghan's long-running strategy with the entertainment industry. Ever since stepping back from royal duties in 2020, she's fought to redefine herself. Not just as a former duchess, but as a media mogul, humanitarian, producer, and cultural tastemaker. She's pitched scripted series, documentaries, product lines. She's mingled with Oprah, rubbed shoulders with Beyoncé, signed with powerful agents. She even moved to Montecito to be closer to LA. Every move calculated. Every appearance curated. But here's the rub. Hollywood remembers. It remembers the stories about demands on set. The whispered fallout with stylists and directors. The split with Spotify. The strained interviews. The me-first narrative that began to dog her brand. And when a celebrity begins to lose favor, it happens slowly, then all at once. And this was the all-at-once moment. But there's something even more chilling about the clip. Luke doesn't flinch. He doesn't double-take. He doesn't even offer a tight-lipped, polite nod. It's as if Meghan Markle is air. You don't ignore someone that publicly unless you've already made a choice. So the question is, what happened before that moment? Why would Luke, a man known for diplomacy, choose this hill to plant his flag? Why not smile and move on? Why not take the high road? Unless the high road was silence. Unless the entire parade was orchestrated to show exactly who belongs and who doesn't. Could this be the beginning of Hollywood's most polite blacklist? A quiet campaign not to cancel Meghan Markle, but to erase her? Not with lawsuits. Not with takedowns. With exclusion. There's more. Much more. Because if you think Luke's icy non-reaction was just a personal grudge or an awkward oversight, you haven't seen what happened at the post-parade dinner. A dinner where Meghan Markle's name was on the lips of every producer. Not with admiration, not with concern, but with exhaustion. And it was there, over champagne and holiday hors d'oeuvres, that a decision was made. A decision that would ripple through every studio boardroom, every award campaign, every talk show lineup. Because behind Meghan's forced smile and Luke's careful wave was a power shift years in the making. And the parade? It was just the curtain raiser. So, what really happened after the parade? When the cameras shut off, when the floats rolled back into storage, when the confetti settled, Hollywood's elite didn't head home. They headed to a private reception held inside the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, just blocks away from the parade route. Officially, it was dubbed a holiday appreciation mixer for parade participants, organizers, and select VIPs. Unofficially, it was the most powerful room in Los Angeles that night. There were no red carpets. No press. Just velvet rope, NDAs at the door, and a who's who of influential agents, executives, legacy talent, and hand-picked stars. Luke Wilson arrived first. He shook hands with a few board members, posed for a couple of official snapshots for internal use, and then was escorted to a quiet back table alongside some studio executives from Amazon MGM, Warner Brothers, and a high-ranking Netflix executive. The energy in the room was electric, but not because of the parade. No one was talking about floats or marching bands. They were talking about her, not her presence, her absence, more specifically, her growing irrelevance. She was there, right? One casting director whispered. Yeah, right by the chase float. Nobody went near her. A third voice, sharper, chimed in. She brought her own photographer. Still couldn't get a usable shot. Soft laughter. Not cruel, but dismissive. The kind of laughter reserved for someone who used to matter. And then came the quote that would be whispered again and again in industry lounges, written in blind-item gossip blogs, and screenshotted in group chats. She's a ghost now. She walks through rooms nobody invites her into. That line reportedly came from a senior executive at a streaming platform that had previously inked a multi-million-dollar development deal with Meghan. A deal that quietly fell apart this year. Never renewed, never acknowledged. The reason? She brings heat, the executive added, but not the kind that sells popcorn. Now pause. Ask yourself, what's more brutal than being hated in Hollywood? Being ignored, being quietly uninvited, gradually erased. No scandal, no confrontation, just nothing. But how did it get to this point? Back at the dinner, Luke Wilson reportedly remained largely silent on the Meghan discussion. He sipped his water. He nodded politely, but he didn't engage. And yet, his non-engagement was everything. Insiders say that earlier in the week, when rumors surfaced that Meghan might drop by the parade uninvited, Luke's PR team had already anticipated the optics. They allegedly coached him on how to handle the situation without escalation. Step 1, don't react. Step 2, don't acknowledge. Step 3, let silence say it all. And say it all, it did. Because in that post-parade dinner, when Luke was praised for keeping it classy, it wasn't about Christmas spirit. It was about Hollywood's unofficial new code. Don't reward desperation with recognition. At another corner of the ballroom, a group of young producers from an Emmy-nominated streaming series were overheard discussing why they'd passed on Meghan for a voiceover cameo. It's not the brand. It's the energy, one said. She's polarizing, another added. A third raised an eyebrow and muttered. She's exhausting. These are not red flags. They're eulogies in an industry obsessed with momentum. But the worst part? She knows. Sources close to Meghan say that by the time the dinner wrapped, she was back in Montecito, already on the phone with her team, fuming, not just about Luke Wilson's snub, but about how no one came to her defense. Not one star. Not one post. Not one headline that painted her in a sympathetic light. Just silence. Which begs the question, has Meghan Markle become Hollywood's open secret? The person everyone talks about, but no one wants to talk to? It's a chilling possibility. One executive at a major PR agency explained it like this. Meghan doesn't have a scandal problem. She has a support problem. There's no one left willing to go to bat for her. It's all been burned. Another brutal analogy followed. She's not a bridge burner. She's a bridge napalmer. Ouch. Now let's circle back to Luke Wilson one more time. Why is this so symbolic? Because Wilson represents everything Meghan is not, at least in the current perception war. He's quiet, unassuming, Consistent. He doesn't chase headlines. He doesn't sell products. He doesn't cry on camera. He's safe. And safety is the new sexy in a Hollywood reeling from scandals, backlash, and the backlash to the backlash. Producers want less drama. Brands want less risk. And audiences? They want to believe again. Luke Wilson gives them that. Meghan Markle, once the face of a revolution, royal and otherwise, is now seen as the face of fatigue. And when you become a punchline or a liability in this town, no one sends you a notice. You just stop getting calls. Just like she didn't get one for the parade. And now, the dinners. But it doesn't end there. Because someone at that post-parade dinner leaked something far more devastating than gossip. A list. A guest list. One that had been scrubbed. Because originally, Meghan had been considered for the parade months earlier. Not as a Grand Marshal. Not even as a float guest. As a voiceover narrator for the TV broadcast's opening. It would have been a soft appearance. Rebuilding. Reintroducing. But 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, her name was quietly pulled. And guess who replaced her? A lesser-known daytime host with a fraction of her followers, but with zero controversy. That's the game now. Low risk, low noise. So when Meghan stood at that sidewalk, eyes hidden behind her designer sunglasses, heart probably pounding in her chest, she wasn't watching a parade. She was watching her reflection in a city that had moved on without her. She was no longer the guest of honor. She was the ghost, the girl at the gates, staring in, wondering if anyone still remembered why they opened the door in the first place. And Luke Wilson? He was the gatekeeper now, the king of a town that doesn't crown queens anymore. They crown relevance. And in that moment, the coldest smile wasn't even hers. It was his. Unbothered, undisturbed, uninterested. But what happened next would tear the mask off the Meghan Markle brand in a way no camera had ever caught before. Because the next day, a phone call leaked. And this time, Meghan wasn't smiling. You'd think a woman who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Queen Elizabeth II would never have to chase a red carpet again. That she'd be begged, not asked, to grace any event she chose. That the title Duchess of Sussex would still carry enough weight to silence any critic, open any door, clear any path. But on December 1st, 2025, Meghan Markle found herself facing a different kind of door. Locked, unlabeled, and very, very public. Because make no mistake, this parade, the iconic, glitzy, tradition-soaked Hollywood Christmas parade, was not just a celebration. It was a litmus test, a stage, a mirror. And Meghan Markle was not on the guest list. Not accidentally. Not by oversight. Deliberately. Let's dig in. Every November, planning for the parade kicks into overdrive. Dozens of stakeholders, from event organizers to city officials, studio representatives, corporate sponsors, and celebrity publicists, meet weekly to finalize appearances, logistics, scripts, and, most importantly, names. Names of stars. Names of hosts. Names of Grand Marshals. Names of influencers. Names of special surprises. These meetings are where the magic happens, or doesn't. Back in late August 2025, Meghan's team reportedly submitted an informal expression of interest. Nothing aggressive, just a friendly nudge. A well-placed source tells us the email came from a senior PR rep working with Meghan's lifestyle brand. As ever, the message? Subtle, strategic. It included phrases like community engagement, family-friendly opportunity, and a return to authentic moments of connection. Translation? Meghan wanted in. Not as a Grand Marshal. That ship had sailed. Not even as a host. She was willing, her team suggested, to appear as a surprise guest, perhaps on a float honoring women entrepreneurs, or even doing a quick reading of The Night Before Christmas as a nod to her voiceover background. And for a moment, organizers considered it. Briefly, her name definitely came up, said one insider who sat in on several parade planning calls. But the room got very quiet, very fast. Why? Because for the first time in years, Meghan Markle was no longer an automatic yes. She was a maybe. Maybe she'll be worth the media frenzy. Maybe she'll boost ratings. Maybe she'll bring controversy we don't need. And in 2025, maybe is the new no. Behind closed doors, the parade committee began to weigh her inclusion like a risk matrix. Would sponsors be on board? Would the press focus on her presence or the parade itself? Would there be drama if she arrived with her own photographers, her own stylists, her own angles? And more than anything else, would the public care? That's the question that changed everything. Because according to a Nielsen-backed social sentiment report shared with stakeholders, Meghan's engagement metrics were tanking. Despite a dedicated base of loyal fans, the wider public's interest had dropped. Mentions were down. Retweets were shallow. TikTok virality? Weak. Worse yet, the net sentiment around her brand was divisive. One executive reportedly asked, "Do we really want her to be the story?" The silence answered for them. But the official reply Meghan's team received weeks later was far more diplomatic. "Thank you for your interest," the email read. "Unfortunately, due to limited slots and scheduling constraints, we are unable to accommodate additional appearances this year." And just like that, the door was closed. But Meghan didn't stay quiet. At least, not behind the scenes. Sources close to her inner circle say she was disappointed but unsurprised. She reportedly told a friend, "This town is obsessed with the safe choice. I'm just not interested in playing bland." Yet there was something beneath the words. Something sharper. Because this wasn't the first time she'd been quietly sidelined in recent months. Remember the Beverly Hills Philanthropy Gala in October? She was originally floated as a co-host. 2 weeks before the final lineup was released, her name was removed without explanation. The excuse? Scheduling conflicts. But insiders say donors pushed back, worried her presence would pull attention. Then there was the rumored cameo in a popular holiday rom-com for streaming. She'd pitched herself as a narrator. A lighthearted, wink-to-camera role. Executives passed, citing tone mismatch. And now, the parade. Each no stacking on top of the last. Building not just a wall, but a message. You don't belong here anymore. What stings even more is who did get invited. Alongside Luke Wilson were rising stars from network dramas, viral TikTok personalities, and several second-tier royalty-adjacent figures, socialites with British accents and shiny new book deals. One influencer, known for her wholesome lifestyle vlogs, posted selfies from her float captioned, "So honored to be part of this beautiful tradition. A dream come true." That post racked up nearly 2 million likes. Meghan's social media accounts, by contrast, remained quiet. No holiday messages. No parade photos. Just silence. Until, of course, she appeared in person, unannounced, along the boulevard. Let's unpack that. Was it a spontaneous decision? Doubtful. Security footage from the Beverly Hills parking garage where she exited her vehicle shows a familiar face trailing her, one of her known media consultants. Another source confirmed she arrived with a personal photographer who wore a wristband typically given to press with temporary access credentials. But if she wasn't invited, how did her photographer get that band? This leads to one of the juiciest revelations yet. A mid-level staffer from a local entertainment news affiliate may have been used to slip Meghan's photographer in under a secondary outlet's allocation. The station has since denied involvement, but one senior parade organizer said bluntly, "That wasn't a mistake. It was a workaround." So Meghan had eyes on her. Cameras at the ready. A team quietly in place. She didn't plan to watch the parade. She planned to be watched. Except she wasn't. No one gave her the spotlight. No announcer mentioned her name. No camera lingered. No crowd chanted. She was positioned perfectly along the route. Flanked by no one. Looking poised, regal, ready for a moment that never came. And as Luke Wilson passed by, the optics couldn't have been more clear. He, waving from a convertible, beaming. She, standing stone still, unseen. Some viewers described it as cinematic. Others said it felt like a glitch in the Matrix. One parade attendee tweeted, "It was like she expected him to stop. Like this was her comeback moment. But he just didn't." And therein lies the tragedy. Because Meghan has never accepted the idea that she needs to be invited to reclaim her narrative. Her entire post-royal life has been about seizing control, breaking tradition, forging her own path. But Hollywood isn't Buckingham Palace. It doesn't respond to self-willed power plays. It responds to momentum, to popularity, to demand. And right now, that demand isn't there. Worse, it's being actively replaced. Remember that holiday float for Women in Entertainment Meghan hoped to join? It featured Reese Witherspoon, Issa Rae, and 2 former castmates of Meghan's from Suits. Let that sink in. Her old colleagues got the invite. She didn't. They posed. They waved. They laughed, and not one of them looked her way. So ask yourself, is this professional jealousy or something more systemic? Could it be that Meghan Markle, once the face of modern royalty, now faces a reality where her name simply doesn't sparkle the way it used to? And if that's true, how much of it is her doing? Has she pushed too hard, demanded too much, burned too many bridges? Or has the industry turned on her unfairly, punishing her for daring to control her own narrative? These are the questions that swirl around every silent rejection, every erased appearance, every look that doesn't land. But Meghan isn't done, not by a long shot, because just hours after the parade ended, a private call between Meghan and one of her closest Hollywood confidants was leaked, and what she said might finally confirm what Hollywood's been whispering behind her back for months. Why did he do it? That's the question that turned a quiet smile into a firestorm. A moment of indifference into a message heard around the world. Because when Luke Wilson, a man rarely seen outside of film sets, basketball games, and the occasional heartfelt podcast, looked directly in Meghan Markle's direction and offered her nothing, it wasn't just silence. It was strategy. It was power. And it may have been the boldest move of his career. Let's get something straight. Luke Wilson is not the kind of celebrity who seeks confrontation. He doesn't stir controversy. He doesn't do headline drama. In fact, most people in Hollywood will tell you the same thing. Luke's the nice guy, the quiet one, the one who never causes trouble. But that's exactly what made his non-reaction to Meghan Markle so devastating. It didn't feel like a grudge. It felt like a decision, like a boundary, like the quiet power of someone who doesn't need to prove anything anymore. And in a town built on optics, that kind of move can reset the hierarchy in seconds. But where did it come from? To understand Luke's silent stand, we have to trace his trajectory. Because while Meghan Markle was dominating the headlines in 2020 with her royal escape, her Oprah interview, and her Spotify deal, Luke Wilson was doing less. At least on the surface. He wasn't launching a brand. He wasn't making political statements. He wasn't writing memoirs. He was filming low-budget dramas, supporting indie directors, doing voiceover work for animated family comedies, appearing on the occasional talk show with that laid-back drawl and half-smile that made him feel like someone's cooler uncle. But beneath that chill exterior, Luke was building something. Trust. With studios. With producers. With audiences. He was seen as a stabilizing presence, especially in a time when the entertainment world was being rocked by pandemics, reckonings, scandals, cancellations, and polarization. When everyone else was shouting, Luke was listening, and Hollywood noticed. By late 2023, Luke had quietly signed a multi-picture deal with a major streamer. Not flashy, not front-page news, but lucrative, smart, solid. In 2024, he turned down 2 high-drama reality show offers, one as a judge, one as a celebrity guest. His reason? I'd rather be remembered for stories than sound bites. And in 2025, as Meghan Markle struggled to reignite her brand with Love, Meghan, and the slow rollout of As Ever, Luke Wilson became the go-to face for credibility. Which brings us to the parade. Because Luke wasn't just chosen randomly. Multiple insiders confirmed that the decision to name Luke Grand Marshal was made months before the event, and that his name was specifically approved by at least 3 major sponsors who wanted someone safe, beloved, and under the radar. Someone who didn't bring noise. Someone who didn't carry controversy. Someone who represented the anti-brand to Meghan's hyper-curated public persona. It wasn't just about Christmas cheer. It was a reset, and Luke knew it. So when whispers reached his team that Meghan might attempt a surprise appearance along the parade route, the strategy was simple. Don't engage. Don't wave. Don't smile. Don't react. Because doing so would shift the spotlight and possibly reframe the narrative. One subtle glance could have lit the fuse. But Luke wasn't interested in being a pawn. According to sources close to his management, Luke made it clear, I'm not here to make statements. I'm here to honor tradition. Period. And yet, in not making a statement, he made the biggest one of all. Because silence, in this case, didn't read as ignorance. It read as intentional. And Meghan felt it. Observers noted the look on her face when he passed. Not surprise. Not anger. Something sharper. Something deeper. Recognition. She saw the gate closing, and Luke holding the key. But here's the twist. This wasn't personal. At least, not entirely. Those who know Luke say he holds no personal grudge against Meghan Markle. They've never worked together, never clashed publicly. In fact, at one point, a casting director floated both of their names for a late 2020s dramedy series. Luke passed. No comment given. But as one longtime friend put it, he doesn't do diva. Doesn't matter how famous you are. And that's where this story becomes bigger than two people. Because Luke Wilson's quiet power move wasn't just about Meghan. It was about the industry line in the sand. The end of performative inclusion. The backlash to influencer royalty. The rise of what Hollywood is now calling the substance era. Stars like Kuhui Kwan, Paul Giamatti, Jennifer Garner. People who show up, do the work, keep their private lives private, and let their talent, not their drama, do the talking. Luke fits that mold perfectly. Meghan, not so much. And that contrast was never more evident than during the parade. On one side, Luke Wilson, beaming with authenticity, standing on a float paid for by 3 major sponsors. On the other, Meghan Markle, standing alone in the crowd, surrounded by silence, waiting for a moment that never arrived. Ask yourself, how often does Hollywood show its cards so clearly? How often do you see the doors being closed in real time? Because this wasn't just a missed wave. This was a polite, public freeze-out. And it worked. Within hours of the clip hitting social media, fans of Luke Wilson began praising his professionalism. TikToks popped up with side-by-side comparisons. Meghan's reaction versus Luke's stone-cold gaze. Some called him Hollywood's quiet assassin. Others dubbed him the king of chill. One particularly viral tweet read, "Luke Wilson did more damage with one blank stare than the tabloids did in 5 years." Meghan's team, meanwhile, went into overdrive. According to one insider, several damage control strategies were discussed within hours of the incident. Releasing a candid photo of Meghan at the parade smiling with kids never surfaced. A tweet about spreading love, even when it's not returned, drafted, never posted. A possible People exclusive interview on the power of showing up anyway, reportedly pitched, not accepted. None of it landed. Why? Because in this story, the public had already chosen their protagonist. And it wasn't the Duchess. It was the man who said nothing and won everything. The man whose silence confirmed what insiders had long whispered, that Hollywood was changing the rules again. That relevance, realness, and restraint were back in style. And those who ignored that shift would be left in the cold. So where does this leave Meghan? Outmaneuvered, outflanked, and for now out. But the real sting? Luke Wilson's quiet power play didn't even need to be directed at her. It simply had to exist in the same frame. And that, friends, is how power really works in Hollywood. It's not the scream. It's the whisper. It's not the press release. It's the pause. It's not the wave. It's the man who never looks back. But Meghan wasn't going to let the story end there. Because just when Hollywood thought it had turned the page, she picked up the phone. And what came out of that call would blow the lid off what really happened behind the scenes. She wasn't there. But her name wouldn't leave the room. It wasn't a royal banquet or a red carpet gala. No flashing bulbs. No choreographed arrivals. No press releases. Just the soft glow of dimmed chandeliers, the clink of crystal glassware, and the smell of truffle butter and aged wine. It was the kind of dinner Hollywood loves, the kind no one talks about until it's far too late. Tuesday night, 3 weeks before the Hollywood Christmas parade. Location? A discreet private room at Tower Bar, nestled inside the Sunset Tower Hotel. One of the few places in Los Angeles where even the most famous feel invisible. The table was long, mahogany, polished within an inch of its life. And at that table, a dozen people who control what we see and who we celebrate. A-list producers, mid-level execs with billion-dollar streaming portfolios, studio heads, showrunners, PR sharks, and, seated dead center at the far end, sipping from a glass of Barolo, Luke Wilson. He wasn't the host. He didn't need to be. The host was a legendary film executive known for wearing cashmere in summer and burying careers in winter. And this dinner wasn't just for catching up. It was a temperature check. Because in modern Hollywood, reputation isn't just a matter of talent. It's a matter of metrics, alignment, predictability. The invite list was curated to reflect that. Actors with recent clean PR runs, creators with upcoming Oscar bait projects, and public figures known for being, in a word, stable. And yet, Even before the first amuse-bouche was served, the name on everyone's mind was Meghan Markle. Not because she was coming. She wasn't invited. But because of what she'd done just days before. A certain email had leaked. One Meghan's team allegedly sent to a studio partner, subtly floating her availability for several seasonal collaborations. Among them, a possible holiday docuseries and a branded behind-the-scenes look at her family's Christmas. The email wasn't offensive, but it was desperate. At least, that's how it landed. One producer seated at the Tower Bar dinner reportedly read it aloud in a mocking tone. A fresh take on the holidays from a uniquely modern American family. Heartfelt. Accessible. Real. The table chuckled. Someone added, "What's next?" The Markle Christmas Tree Topper Collection. It would have been cruel if it weren't so calculated. Because this dinner wasn't just about joking. It was about aligning. Who's in? Who's out? Who's neutral and not worth betting on? And Meghan Markle, at that moment, was being voted off the island. Not loudly, not officially, but definitively. The table reached a silent consensus. She was now a brand risk. Let's pause here. Because for anyone outside of the industry, this sounds harsh, petty, maybe even unfair. But Hollywood doesn't operate on fairness. It operates on value per frame. Emotional ROI. Audience sentiment. Clean arcs. Meghan had once offered all of that. She was a media dream. A biracial American actress who married into British royalty, then exited the palace with a tell-all and a vision of freedom. She was the protagonist of her own story. But by late 2025, the narrative had fractured. No hit shows. No universally embraced products. Just noise. And silence. And worse, too many broken bridges. Spotify? Over. Netflix? Contractual, but cold. Media allies? Retreating. And the problem wasn't just external. It was that Meghan, according to multiple industry insiders, refused to play the game. She wanted final cut. Creative control. Influence over marketing language. Control over lighting angles. Demands that even Hollywood royalty, actual Oscar winners, often wouldn't dare request. She doesn't understand the difference between fame and goodwill, one dinner guest said, voice low but sharp. She thinks she's Beyoncé, another replied. But she doesn't sell like Beyoncé. Luke Wilson hadn't said much all evening. Until now. He leaned forward, pausing before speaking. She's not dangerous, he said. Just exhausting. The table fell quiet. He didn't mean it as a takedown. He meant it as a verdict. And that's what it became. Because Luke wasn't one of her enemies. He was something worse. A respected neutral who had finally stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. You could feel the air shift. If he was done with her, so were they. That night, the rest of Meghan's potential projects, soft pitches still floating around in back channels, were quietly shelved. Not blocked. Not rejected. Just allowed to die in email inboxes. And here's the darkest irony. Meghan never knew the dinner was happening. She was never told she'd been considered. She never saw the moment her Hollywood oxygen was cut off. Not with a headline, not with a scandal, but with a murmur across white tablecloths and half-finished creme brulee. But she felt it. Because the very next day, she made a call. To someone she trusted. Someone who used to work at one of the studios represented at that dinner. And in that call, which would be secretly recorded and later leaked, Meghan said something that chilled even her fans. They want me to disappear. She wasn't wrong. The shift had begun, from potential comeback queen to non-entity. And when Meghan stood at the parade weeks later, watching Luke Wilson sail by without so much as a blink, that coldness wasn't new. It had been practiced, coordinated, decided, by a dozen forks clinking against porcelain 3 weeks earlier. So ask yourself, what's more brutal? A public feud or a private consensus? Because Meghan Markle didn't lose her footing with one misstep. She lost it with a whisper campaign. A gentle, lethal dinner. And the man at the end of the table, who didn't need to raise his voice to end the conversation. But what Meghan said next, during that leaked phone call, would ignite the fury she had tried so hard to suppress. It wasn't polished. It wasn't filtered. It was raw. And it was recorded. One word can ruin a career. This one, it detonated an entire brand. It's the kind of industry email that was never meant to see the light of day. Internal, confident, candid. The kind of thing studio executives write to each other late at night, when the champagne is gone, the marketing team's asleep, and the masks come off. And in this case, the subject line was short. Brutal. Markle. Too hot to handle. What followed inside that email would become the smoking gun. A turning point. A digital paper trail proving that Meghan Markle wasn't just being ghosted by Hollywood. She was being actively iced out. And it all came from within. Let's rewind. Because this isn't just about an email, it's about the moment it dropped. 5 days after the Tower Bar dinner. 2 weeks before the Hollywood Christmas parade. A small but influential Hollywood gossip blog, known for its brutal accuracy and no-nonsense tone, published a story titled, "Insiders say Meghan Markle's projects are on pause, but the real reason might shock you." The article was barely 300 words. No names, no dates, no sources. But buried at the end was a single, devastating quote. "She's radioactive." No context, no attribution, just that. And the internet caught fire. Reddit threads speculated. Twitter ran wild. YouTube channels cranked out videos with thumbnails of Meghan looking shocked, or in black and white, under titles like "Megxit from Hollywood" and "Radioactive Duchess." What we know. Within 24 hours, that one word became the nucleus of an entire digital narrative. Was Meghan Markle really being frozen out? Was she so toxic that execs wouldn't even touch her with a 10-foot pole? But then, 3 days later, came the leak. A burner X, formerly Twitter, account posted a screenshot of a redacted internal email chain from Amazon MGM Studios, allegedly discussing upcoming 2026 programming strategy. The email was dated October 28, 2025, and it included a shocking line, attributed to a senior development executive. "I'm telling you, we can't even mention Markle in the room. She's radioactive." Half the room clams up, the other half rolls their eyes. No one wants to go near it, not even for nostalgia points. That line was never meant to be public, but it was real. The language, the tone, the internal tags, the redacted names, the style, all matched real, authentic Hollywood internal memos. Multiple industry insiders confirmed off-record it was legit, and the dominoes began to fall. PR firms panicked. One entertainment agency deleted all Markle-related posts from their X timeline within hours. A marketing manager for a skincare brand quietly removed Meghan's, as ever, tea tree bomb from their affiliate carousel. But the damage wasn't just public. It was personal, because the person copied on that email, Luke Wilson's representation. That's right. The man who had just been chosen Grand Marshal of the Hollywood Christmas parade. The man whose profile had risen sharply in the last 6 months. The man who, until recently, had no professional intersection with Meghan Markle whatsoever. So why was he looped in? Because he was being considered for a small executive producer role on a future Amazon MGM documentary series, an anthology on public perception and the rise and fall of modern fame. And Meghan Markle had allegedly been pitched for one of the episodes. Her team had floated the idea, a reflective, raw conversation about the cost of celebrity, betrayal by the press, institutional trauma, and reinvention. In short, Meghan, unfiltered. But the reaction inside the studio was ice cold. And when Luke's team saw the thread, they passed. Quietly. Firmly. No comment. But one source tells us that Luke allegedly told a close confidant, "I don't want to be near that circus. I've worked too hard to keep my career clean." So let's break this down. What does it mean when an entire room of decision makers, people who make billions of dollars shaping what we watch, agree, without needing to say it out loud, that a once beloved public figure is now radioactive? It means their phone stops ringing. It means collaborators bail. It means their agent doesn't push them anymore, not because they can't, but because they won't. It means streaming platforms stop taking pitch meetings. It means the optics of working with them outweigh any possible upside. In Meghan's case, it meant this. Total silence. No responses from studio heads. No follow-up meetings. No holiday invites. No red carpet nods. No parade slot. But the most painful part? No one told her directly. She found out like the rest of us, from a leak. When her comms team forwarded her the article, she reportedly went still. A staffer who was present during that moment says she sat in silence for nearly a minute, then asked, "Do you think it's true?" They didn't answer. Because what could they say? To the outside world, Meghan was still projecting calm, posing with Archie, making peppermint hot chocolate in a beige kitchen for, with love, Meghan. writing quotes on her lifestyle blog about resilience and grace. But internally, her world was cracking. Multiple sources say she became furious, not just at the leak, but at the implication, at the idea that she could be written off with a single word. Radioactive, like something dangerous, contagious, unstable. But perception is everything. And by the time Meghan's team tried to get ahead of the narrative, it was already too late. One major PR firm, contacted for damage control, reportedly said, "We can't spin this without making it worse. She needs to disappear for a while. Let the fatigue cool down." Disappear? That was never an option. Not for Meghan Markle. Because vanishing is what she's accused others of doing to her. She won't let it happen again. Instead, she doubled down. Less than a week after the email leak, she began making calls. Direct, assertive, to producers, to old friends, to influencers, to allies she hadn't spoken to in years. Her message was clear. "I'm not going anywhere." But the responses were less clear. One Netflix showrunner reportedly ignored 3 texts. An old stylist sent a brief "sorry" swamped. A mid-tier actress she once championed left her on read. Even Spotify, long done with her, offered only a vague, "best of luck with your future endeavors" when she reached out. The blowback was real. But Meghan, according to her closest staffers, didn't cry. She got angry. And during one now infamous phone call, a recording of which would soon explode across social media, she let that fury burn through the line. "They're treating me like a virus," she said, her voice clipped, sharp. "Well, fine. Maybe I'll become one." And the person on the other end didn't laugh. Because the idea of Meghan Markle going rogue, not as a duchess, not as a brand, but as a disruptor, suddenly didn't sound so crazy. She had been erased from one system. But that didn't mean she couldn't build another. That call would be the first spark, the first sign that Meghan was preparing a counterstrike. But before she could roll out any comeback plan, a different kind of humiliation struck. This one wasn't hidden in boardrooms. It played out on the glittering streets of Los Angeles, on a night when she showed up, smiled, posed, and no one looked. On paper, it was supposed to be her comeback. On screen, it was just beige. When With Love, Meghan debuted on Netflix in early 2025, it had all the trappings of a streaming juggernaut. Sleek production design, vegan-friendly recipes, celebrity cameos, wellness buzzwords, soft-focus lighting, and the crown jewel of the concept, a vulnerable, unfiltered Meghan Markle as your hostess of hope, healing, and holiday spice lattes. Netflix, eager to recover from the tepid reception of earlier Sussex content, had greenlit the show with cautious optimism. Internally, it was dubbed the Oprah Fix, shorthand for a reputational rehab project that could reconnect Meghan with the global audiences who once rallied behind her in droves. But instead of a comeback, it became something far more brutal. A silent collapse. A ratings mirage. Let's rewind to the premiere weekend. February 14th, 2025. Valentine's Day. The timing was deliberate. Warmth, comfort, femininity, family, healing. The show dropped with coordinated social media buzz. Hashtags, partner influencer shoutouts, a Harper's Bazaar exclusive, even a pre-recorded message from Meghan teasing a new chapter of joy. And for 24 hours, it looked like it might work. TikTok was flooded with clips of Meghan laughing with Serena Williams in the first episode. Instagram carousel posts featured cozy behind-the-scenes shots of Archie's favorite smoothie. Netflix's trending bar placed, With Love, Meghan, at number 6 in the US. But then, the numbers plateaued. And then they dipped. And then they vanished entirely. Why? Because while millions may have clicked on the first episode out of curiosity, most didn't finish it. Internal data later leaked to the Wrap showed a shocking retention rate. Less than 38% of viewers made it past episode 2. Even worse, only 21% completed the full season. And among the core demographic Netflix was targeting, women aged 25 to 44, the feedback was blunt. Staged. Too soft. Boring. Tone-deaf. Like watching a rich Pinterest board come to life. To be fair, With Love, Meghan looked beautiful. Each episode opened with a vignette. Meghan, alone in a perfectly curated kitchen, slicing seasonal fruit or arranging flowers. She would then deliver a soft monologue to the camera. I think we all need more moments of peace in a world that keeps demanding more of us. Cue gentle piano. Fade into a featured guest or a recipe. End with a reflective wrap-up like, may you find your own quiet today. There were no breakdowns, no hard questions, no vulnerability, just beige. And that was the problem. Because the Meghan Markle the public had followed for years, the fierce, bold, candid, controversial figure was missing. What replaced her was a carefully sanitized avatar, a soothing lifestyle influencer who seemed to have traded conflict for cushions, tension for turmeric. Even Meghan's former fans felt the shift. One popular podcast host, a self-described Markle defender during the 2021 media wars, reviewed the show in an emotional 8-minute monologue. I don't know who this Meghan is. She's gone. It's like watching someone read lines at a dinner party they don't want to be at. I miss the woman who made the royal family shake. The show's biggest flaw wasn't production. It was authenticity, or more precisely, the absence of it. Every scene felt rehearsed. Every line felt pre-approved by a crisis comms team. Even the kitchen messes looked like they were styled by a brand consultant. And the guests? All safe. No one challenged Meghan. No one pushed her. No one made her laugh so hard she forgot the camera was there. There were no moments. Just segments. Compare this to other real-life, wellness shows like Selena Gomez's Selena Plus Chef, which leaned into awkwardness, cooking fails, and human texture. Meghan's show had none of that. It was aspirational to a fault, so curated it didn't feel lived in. But the worst part? Netflix noticed. While publicly supportive, internally, the streamer quickly pivoted. Any talk of a second season was shelved within 30 days. Cross-promotional pushes with other talent were dropped. Meghan's episode was quietly removed from a Women's History Month playlist by March. Even worse. A planned social media challenge called #WithLoveMoments, meant to encourage users to post their own acts of daily gratitude, fizzled after just 2 weeks. Participation was so low, the marketing team quietly deleted the official account. The message was clear. The public wasn't rejecting Meghan as a human. They were rejecting the product. And Meghan? She noticed. Sources say she was visibly shaken by the numbers, but even more disturbed by the silence from Netflix. No congratulatory tweet. No renewal tease. No email blast celebrating milestones. Just a void. And inside that void, Meghan did what she's done before when faced with rejection. She recalibrated. Insiders say she blamed the edit. That she believed her most personal moments were left on the cutting room floor. That she told one confidant, "They made me into a painting. That wasn't the show I pitched." But according to a producer who worked on set, the footage they didn't use was no better. She never let the camera catch her off guard. Every time we thought we had something real, she'd pause and redo the line. It was like she couldn't allow herself to be unpolished. And that's the stuff people connect to. One editor put it even more bluntly. "We cut a great-looking ghost." That line haunted every conversation that followed. Because it confirmed what many in the industry had feared. Meghan's need to control the narrative had finally overtaken her ability to tell a story. And that's a death sentence in entertainment. Once audiences feel manipulated, they disengage. It's not hate. It's not backlash. It's worse. It's indifference. And with Love, Meghan became a textbook case of that. The show wasn't panned by critics. It wasn't trolled by tabloids. It just vanished. No awards. No memes. No buzz. And Meghan, who had once captured the world with her vulnerability, now found herself standing behind a glass wall of her own making. But perhaps the cruelest irony? While Meghan's show faded, another former royal insider, Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, released a chaotic, hilarious, completely unfiltered YouTube series from her country estate. Shot on an iPhone. No script. Bad lighting. Millions of views. People laughed with her, shared her mishaps, quoted her one-liners. It was messy, and it worked, because it was real. So while With Love, Meghan had an 8-person glam team and a $5 million budget, Fergie's chickens and red wine-laced monologues beat her to the punch. That stung, and it drove Meghan back to her team with a directive. We need to take control back. No more depending on Netflix. No more waiting for mainstream invites. No more trusting that the system would protect her. Because the system had spoken, and the next rejection wouldn't be digital.